I don't know what I'm asking you here.
Yeah,
Carole.
I think I know.
But let me ask you so I have it on tape.
Sure.
And I know you know the answer to the question, but I need to know the question to the question.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
This is All Ears. I'm Everett Hopfner. This week on All Ears, my guest is Carole Bestvater. She's another former classmate of mine from our days back at Brandon University. Carole is a violinist and an educator, dedicated to community engagement. She's now based in St. John's, Newfoundland, and is a graduate of Memorial University. Carole has done what she always does, and really found her niche, charmed everyone around her, and integrated herself so well into her new surroundings. She is now the assistant principal second violin of the Newfoundland Symphony Orchestra, and through a great effort on her part, she has become the coordinator of the newly revamped Suncor Energy Strings program. Carole has a determined work ethic, a brilliantly shining positive attitude, and a very infectious laugh. This will definitely be the jolliest episode of All Ears that I think we'll ever make. Carole Bestvater, this week's guest. Here is our conversation. Carole.
Everett.
What a joy. Thank you so much for doing this. I'm so happy to see your smiling face, and it's such a joy to talk to you again and just to catch up.
I completely agree. This is really great. Thank you for asking me to do this.
Of course. You grew up in Saskatoon.
My parents live in Saskatoon now, but I grew up in small communities around Saskatchewan, small towns of 2,000, 3,000 people. Always had to commute to the big cities to get my music lessons.
And was it always clear to you that music was going to be your direction in terms of higher education and your professional background?
Music was the thing that was most motivating and the thing that I enjoyed doing most. So to me, it was a no-brainer, actually, in terms of what I wanted to immerse myself in and study further. I just wanted to play the violin, and I wanted to play it well, and I wanted to have that in my life somehow, some way, always. So music school was a very natural step for me. Mm-hmm.
And that led you a few miles down the highway to Brandon, Manitoba, which is where we met.
That's right. Yes, so that led me a few miles down the highway to Brandon. But even at that phase, I was asking myself questions like, how is this going to be my life? Like, how do you make being a musician a lifestyle or a career? And I had two models in my mind. That I had, you can be a teacher, you can have your studio, or you can be an orchestral musician. And I wasn't sure if I wanted either of those tracks or solely either of those tracks. So even in Brandon, I was asking myself these questions of, well, how do you engage a larger community, or how do you make this meaningful, or what does it mean to be a musician in the world?
I think one of the questions that every undergrad musician gets as a student is, oh, you're doing a music degree. What are you going to do with that?
Exactly. Yeah.
I think it's fascinating, but also it's questions that we're asking ourselves. And, in talking to our colleagues and our classmates, I mean, it's clear that some people have in their mind certain very concrete plans of, yes, I want to go ahead and do a master's, or no, after this degree I'm going to go teach, or have something in mind.
Yep.
You did something a little bit different.
Yes, I did. Well, in my last year of Brandon, actually, of my undergrad degree, I wasn't exactly convinced that I wanted to go forward and do more education. I knew I wasn't ready for a master's degree, mostly because I didn't have a school in mind, and I didn't have a teacher in mind, and I also just didn't know where that would lead me or what it would be for. But there was an organization that I had heard about, actually, previous in high school, actually. I had read about Community Music Works, which is a nonprofit in Providence, Rhode Island. I'd heard about them, so in my last year of Brandon, I just remember being in the music library and just pondering, it's like, oh my goodness, all my friends are applying for master's degrees, or they have this plan, and I don't know what I'm doing. And I just went onto the internet and found the Community Music Works website, and just looked around and was thinking how awesome it would be to be part of an organization like that. And I clicked on one of the links, and they had a fellowship program that they were accepting violin applications. So every year they accept 2 people into their fellowship program. And it alternates between 2 violins and then a viola and a cello the following year, so that it creates a string quartet. And so I applied for that fellowship on a whim, essentially. Like, I knew it was something that I wanted to do, but I didn't think that they would be interested in me. It's like this girl from Canada has no connection to Providence, no connection. I was very much a wild card. But I applied, I got in contact with CMW, and went through the application process, got an interview, went down to Providence, met with them, and eventually got the job. And that was such a good next step in my life. And good isn't even the right adjective, but it was so perfect for what I wanted and needed in my life in terms of a career trajectory and everything like that.
So let's talk a bit about what was going on at Community Music Works. You spent 2 years there as an intern, is that right?
Yes, yeah.
A fellow.
Yeah, so it's a 2-year fellowship program. Community Music Works is a nonprofit organization that uses music as a transformative experience for youth in a certain community in Providence, Rhode Island. So they're based in the West End of Providence, and traditionally that's a really low-income community. So they offer free music lessons to the children in that neighborhood. So it's open to people who live within certain zip code areas, and it's a no questions asked sort of place. Like, as long as you live in that zip code, you are eligible to sign up for Community Music Works. And what that means is you get a free music lesson on violin, viola, or cello each week, and you have access to fiddle programs and improv programs and music technology programs, and you get free concerts, and it's a really beautiful mentorship program as well. So you have professional musicians who really care for you as a person and as a musician and as a citizen of the world. So it's that is really what goes on at Community Music Works, and to be part of that was incredible. It's incredible.
So after playing, spending 4 years at BU and several years, I'm assuming before that, playing in youth orchestras and playing with other similarly motivated musicians around you all the time, what was it like to step into a room full of absolute beginners or people from just a whole different life story?
I was so eager to learn and to be part of it. So I really embraced every experience that I found myself in. It was amazing to see these kids learning string instruments in a way that I never had learned, because traditionally in music lessons you have private lessons and it's you and your teacher for years until you're good enough to be in a youth orchestra. But at Community Music Works, they often teach students in clusters, so you kind of have a group of 2 or 3 students who have been learning together since the beginning, and they have opportunities to do chamber music and to play in orchestras from a very early age. So the students who are at Community Music Works are learning together and forming bonds and friendships really early on in their music education, and I'd never experienced that before as someone who'd only ever played with their siblings, chamber music with their siblings, until going to music school as a 17-year-old. So to see that in action with young children, it was incredible, and I loved fostering that in students. I really loved every moment with everything that I could muster when I was there. I was so eager to learn.
Just to put a timeline on this, remind me, what years were you at CMW?
I did the fellowship from 2009 to 2011.
And that's one of those things where you go in and there's like a definite endpoint on this.
Yes.
Or am I wrong about that?
Well, you were correct. The fellowship is only 2 years long, although once you're part of CMW, fellows tend to stick around. When I was nearing the end of my fellowship, there was so much of me that wanted to stay there and just stay in Providence and have a career as a resident musician at Community Music Works, but I knew how tricky that would be as a non-American citizen. During my fellowship, it was amazing to be part of a community of professional musicians with great educations and to really hold my own and be a colleague to these wonderful people. But I really learned from that also that I wasn't done learning about the violin. So at the end of my fellowship, I decided to go and do a master's degree. It was at the beginning of my second year at CMW that I started thinking seriously about grad schools, including Memorial University of Newfoundland in St. John's, Newfoundland, and they had a really excellent master's program with a great teacher. So I got in contact with them and got in touch with Nancy Don and was blown away by her teaching and really impressed by the school. So I came back to Providence after my Memorial University audition, and it was pretty clear that that was going to be the right choice for me.
So you enter a master's program with this already in your mind that you want to continue the CMW model, and you have a goal to build a similar program back in where you're from, back in Canada.
Yes, yeah.
So can we talk about your time at Memorial and how you were able to balance the needs of an academic program with your long-term goal planning?
Yeah, totally. Memorial University had a very appealing scholarship for their master's program. Part of the scholarship was to play in the Newfoundland Symphony Orchestra, and part of it was to do a once-a-week after-school music program and also to be a full-time master's student. So built into the scholarship that I was part of was already being immersed in a community, which was very appealing for me because I knew it would be a great way to get connected and to meet people and to learn about a community really quickly.
Carole, that's one of the big challenges, I think, of moving to a new city is, as a musician, is there's all these organizations we need to integrate into and people to meet, and we need to, find the right community that we can really maximize our potential to work in a new community.
Yeah, exactly.
When you walk into a school that already gives you so many leading ropes in this direction, that is such a wonderful, a smart idea coming from the school.
Exactly. So it was a really smart idea coming from the school, and I recognized that this would be a really good place to be and a really good program for me since being connected is really important. It's something I value a lot. And so to be part of a program that also values that was a really natural fit, and it just was so awesome that it just happens to be a good quality program too. Like the teacher Nancy Don and Vernon Regier and all of the strings faculty there just happened to be top notch as well. So it really was a good fit because I was getting an excellent academic education and a really great performance track along with all of the things I valued as a musician and a community oriented person. I mean, with every academic program, it's always a balancing act. So, and the scholarship keeps you very busy because the Newfoundland Symphony Orchestra performs frequently. And so having your regular academic load along with a full symphony schedule as a student, and also being involved and getting involved with organizations and learning about the place and all of that stuff, it was a very busy degree.
So you finished your master's in 2013 after 2 years of intense studies, plus playing in the local symphony orchestra, plus teaching. So you've already got your feet in a few ponds around the city of St. John's, and you've got a good start in a professional career if you decide to stay there.
When I was coming to the end of my master's degree, I had a good foot in the door in many different organizations. I was working for the Suzuki program. I already had a number of private students. I was getting to know a lot of different organizations in the city. I had won the audition for assistant principal second. Like, there were a lot of things. I did that in my second year of my master's degree. Actually, that was an opportunity that came up that I took. And I had applied for a couple of different jobs around Canada, or was determining whether I should move to start a program somewhere else or if I should do it in St. John's. And my mentor, Nancy Don, actually said we were having a meeting. It was supposed to be a lesson, but it ended up just being a chat. and she listened to me talk about what I wanted to do. And she listened to me talk about this idea I had for a program where the kids come and learn in an orchestra setting where they're learning in groups and they're learning together and they get to perform together and they get to listen, and where the teachers also play in chamber groups together for the kids but also for the community and in concert halls around town and stuff like that. And she was listening to me talk about this and how I was trying to see if this idea that I had could fit within an existing organization or if I had to start it on my own. And she just stopped me mid-sentence and was like, Carole, what can I do to help you do that here? And so that was the turning point for me when I realized that there were people in St. John's who really wanted to see this happen, see a program like the one that I was imagining in my head happen. in their community, in my community as well, because it very quickly felt like home. So that was the turning point where I stopped applying for other jobs and just decided to focus on creating the program in St. John's. So, yeah, that happened like March, April of 2013, I guess. Yeah, 2013, spring 2013.
So how do you go from an idea in your head based on your experience at CMW to the NSYO Suncor Energy Strings program? How does that happen?
You talk to a lot of people. You talk and you share. St. John's is a great community because everyone listens and everyone says yes. Maybe not everyone, but it's such a community of people who, if you have a good idea, they say, yeah, that's a good idea. You should make that happen. So if you are dedicated to your vision, it's easy to find people who support you and who are on board to help you make it happen. Which is what I found in Nancy Dawn and a number of other people. So I wrote a proposal. I kind of put all of my ideas on paper and ran it by a lot of different people. So there are a number of mentors in St. John's who I talked to, retired music educators and general managers of the youth orchestra and the CEO of the symphony in town, and lots of people who I would say, hey, this is my idea, what do you think? And they would give me feedback. And eventually the youth orchestra approached me, actually, after I'd been talking to some people involved with it. They approached me and said, we like your model. We'd like to implement it into our program. So they had an existing outreach fund called the Suncor Energy Strings program, but they were looking to revamp it. So they invited me to be program coordinator, and then I basically reworked the existing Suncor Energy Strings program into my model that I had.
And this is all in cooperation with the Newfoundland Symphony Youth Orchestra?
Yeah, the Newfoundland Symphony Youth Orchestra approached me, and that fall, starting in September, I launched it's like the revamped Suncor Energy Strings program, and I had to keep the name, which is okay. We have to be thankful for our sponsors, right? So it's good. So I revamped the existing program, and we started in October of 2013 with 9 kids. I did a number of recruiting concerts in neighborhoods, and I had found a community center who wanted to host music lessons. So I chose the neighborhood of Buckmaster Circle in St. John's, which is traditionally a really low-income neighborhood, lots of problems. The community center is right in the middle of a circle of, it's a housing project, essentially, and a lot of refugee families live there, and a lot of people who are just generationally on welfare live there as well. So the community center was really keen to have music lessons, and I did a bunch of school shows in the 2 elementary schools surrounding them, and we started with 9 grade 2s and 3s, and a month later it grew to 11, and then it grew to 14, and we had 14 kids in our first year, and this is our second season, and we have grown from 14 to 27. So it's kind of...
Congratulations.
Yeah,
that's great.
It's amazing. Just see, we sort of take over the building, and there's just children with string instruments just running. Not running. They don't run. They're not allowed to run. But they're like quickly moving from A to B with like cellos and violins. And I hear all the time from parents and from the community center staff members about how thrilled they are that this is happening in their community. And it's rewarding. It's always rewarding. Yeah.
So what do your students do, and what do they get as members of this program?
As members of the string program, they come 3 days a week. Right after school, they come Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. They get a healthy snack, first thing, and then they have sectional, so they get together in small groups with other children who play the same instrument as them, with a teacher. And they have sectional first, and then they move into full orchestra. So they are 3 times a week, they play for about an hour, and then each child also gets an individual lesson, a short one, but at the end of the day, after everyone goes, 1 or 2 kids will stay, and they will have a private lesson at the end of the day. So a child who is part of the strings program gets a group experience, different types of group experiences, as well as one-on-one time with the teacher to help them with their particular needs.
And do the students have their own instruments, or do you provide them?
We provide instruments. The youth orchestra bought a whole bunch of instruments, which was so great. And we also have a bunch of instruments donated from community members. So every child gets their own instrument. They stay at the community center during the week, but the children can take the instruments home if they choose to over the weekend to practice. We encourage practicing. We stress the importance of taking care of the instrument, so they're not allowed to take the instruments home until they've proven that they can take care of them.
So, Carole, you're now in your second season as the coordinator for the Suncor Energy Strings program. Mm-hmm. Where do you see this going next?
In the next couple of years, I'd love to see a resident string ensemble, whether that's a string quartet, a string trio, or a collective of musicians, base their careers as the core members of this strings program. So I would love to see a community of professional musicians really invested in educating and performing alongside with this program. And I would love to see the orchestras of the strings program grow, but also move into the rest of the youth orchestra system in St. John's. So I'd love for these kids to have the tools they need to join the Newfoundland Youth Orchestra, for example, or to join a fiddle group, or to join whatever they're interested in, or to start their own student quartet or something like that. So I'd love to accommodate the interests of the kids who are involved and integrate them into a larger, wider community.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And so in addition to all of this teaching and coordination and moving children around rooms, you're also assistant principal for second violin at the Newfoundland Symphony Orchestra.
That is true. Yes.
And does the season in the Newfoundland Symphony differ from other symphony orchestras we know?
We play lots of different repertoire. Like, we will play things from symphonies. We played Brahms. This year we played Brahms 2, and we've played Schumann and Schubert, lots of different types of things. So we range from the symphonic, like standard symphonic repertoire to having Alan Doyle from The Great Big Sea come and do a show with us. So it's pretty standard in terms of what symphonies are doing these days. Newfoundland Symphony Orchestra fits very well into that as well. I love the Newfoundland Symphony Orchestra because it's technically a semi-professional orchestra right now, because it includes community members and students as well as a core of professional musicians. And so it creates a different sort of feeling when you go there, because not everyone has to be there. It's a thing that people are part of because they really want to be there. And because of that, the quality of music people are really motivated to do well.
Carole, we've now reached the famous Mr. Rogers Memorial People Are Wonderful celebration of life and knowledge and all that is wonderful in the world. The title gets longer and longer every time. So, of course, this is when we take a moment to say thank you to just some of the many, many people in this world that have helped us get where we are today. Yeah. So, Carole, do you have somebody you'd like to mention?
Yes, of course, there's so many people who have helped along the way. It's so hard to whittle it down. And I do find that in each chapter of my life, like in Brandon University and in Community Music Works and St. John's, there's been one or two just really elemental people who have made my experience what it was and helped project me into the next experience. But I think I have to award this one to Nancy Don, actually. She, because she was really that pinnacle moment where I decided that I had what it takes to create a program in St. John's. And if it hadn't been for her encouragement, I might not have done it in St. John's. I might not have stayed. So, and I'm really glad that I did. It was really it's turned into a wonderful program, and it grows all the time, and there are support coming in from lots of different directions because of her. So I would like to award it to Nancy Don today.
Carole, how can the fine listeners of this show find you, follow you, keep track of your activities?
You can check out www.nsyo.ca. On the Youth Orchestra website, there is a link to the Suncor Energy Strings program, and that's a good way to get in touch with us. You can also find us on Facebook, where we have pictures of the kids learning. It's really, really great. Those are the best ways to keep in touch over the web. Yeah, those are the best ways.
Great. Thank you so much for doing this. I so appreciate your time and your energy and your enthusiasm, and I love how you're doing and what you're doing, and it's so good to hear from you again.
Thank you. It's so good to hear from you too, Everett, and thanks again for asking me to do this. It was awesome.
All right. That's it. You've been listening to the jolliest all ears yet. I'm Everett Hopfner. This week's guest was Carole Bestvater. You can find a link to the Suncor Energy Strings program website, some show notes, and information about all of my past guests at my website, everetthopfner.com. You can follow me and the show on Twitter at evhopf, that's EVHOPF. Every time you like, tweet, share, or comment on All Ears, you help emerging artists reach a wider audience. If you're enjoying the show, please recommend it to a friend and consider leaving a rating or review in the iTunes store. That really helps All Ears reach more ears, which is a clever turn of phrase and also a very good thing. As always, thank you so much for listening. We'll have another episode up in a few weeks. Talk to you then.